The Dennis Alternative Energy Committee have been working for the past several months on refinements, edits, and functional changes to Section 11 of the Dennis zoning bylaw. These changes are being brought to town meeting as one package of changes for your review and approval. Reasons why we're bringing forward these amendments. We have had the wind energy bylaw on record for a year now in its current form. During that time, we have had an opportunity to review it from both a practical standpoint and from an editorial point of view. These amendments seek to address some editorial oversights as well as to make changes impacting implementation of wind energy in Dennis. The changes come in several forms. We have changes to the zoning map as well as changes to the bylaw itself. Several years ago, when the town was first working on the wind energy bylaw, the zoning bylaw study committee was of the belief that the area between Old Chatham Road, Airline Road, and the Brewster Town Line was a prime location for the Dennis Water District to develop wind facilities that could meet its energy needs. The area was considered ideal in that the Water District had large land holdings which could provide for adequate setbacks and screening for a fairly significant wind turbine. The Water District at the time was not quite ready to pursue a turbine. In the first zoning go-round, we zoned only the industrial district with the idea that we would come back in the future to add other areas. 2 years ago, the Alternative Energy Committee echoed the original work of the Dennis Zoning Bylaw Study Committee and asked town meeting to recognize certain water district and town holdings north of Route 6 as areas to be considered for medium-scale wind facilities. Upon further review of the water district needs and the capability of the land between Old Chatham Road, Airline Road, and the Brewster Town Line, it is being requested that the town allow large-scale wind facilities in this area. We're also looking at a number of changes throughout the bylaw. The changes, as I mentioned, are both editorial and functional. If we look at Section 11.3, an editorial change, we had a notation that had the number 3 in it when we actually included 4 categories. We are recommending that you make a change to make this recognize exactly the number of categories we have. Relative to these categories for size, we're also making changes. We had recognized that residential wind scale facilities be less than 10 kW. The ideal rooftop wind facility is a 10 kW system, so we are recommending the change that residential scale wind, which are rooftop, be increased to say systems up to 10 kW. The next system up, the small scale wind facility, needs to be changed to read greater than 10 kW and less than 30 kW. Changes get made to 11.3.3. However, in this one, we're actually looking at reducing the maximum size of a medium-scale wind facility. We had 500 kW for the top size of the range for these, but we found that above 100 kW, or actually 100 kW and larger, requires towers that are taller than we're willing to recommend in these medium-scale areas. So we're recommending that 11.3.3 be changed to read systems of between 30 kW and less than 100 kW. These will be the new range for medium-scale wind facilities. And the following change comes to large scale, that anything that's 100 kW or larger will be considered a large-scale wind facility. This is actually a change that makes things more restrictive for medium-scale wind facilities, but it's our feeling that in the end this is a good thing for the town and also matches up exactly to what is actually happening out there. Some other functional changes are being made to make the town consistent with the state law. Massachusetts Green Communities Act calls upon cities and towns to have at least one area where green energy systems of up to 100 kW can be constructed by right. This means no special permit requirement. We are proposing that the Dennis Industrial District be designated as such an area. The changes will remove penalties instituted by the state which made Dennis and other towns ineligible for funding under the Green Communities Act. We are also proposing wording change to make it clear that all large-scale wind facilities above 100 kW and any large-scale facility located outside the industrial district must be reviewed and issued a special permit. However, it should be noted that there is always one exception to any zoning rule. Agricultural uses on parcels larger than 5 acres are exempt from zoning restrictions. It has been determined that a wind turbine, which makes use of 51% of its energy use on site for agricultural use, is exempt from local zoning restrictions. This means that a farm of greater than 5 acres could erect a turbine of any height and kW rating as long as it uses a majority of its energy on site. They could do this regardless of whether Dennis had Section 11 in the zoning bylaw or not. Then we have changes to Section 11.6. The changes just continue to incorporate the map changes that are discussed earlier, and we need to make sections of the zoning bylaw consistent with the map changes. In 11.6 we add the reference large wind facility overlay district. When we first adopted the Dennis Wind Bylaw, the West Dennis Village Center zoning districts were on a similar approval track. The Wind Bylaw did not want to prejudge town meeting action on the Dennis Village Center zoning districts, and therefore did not list those districts in the original bylaw. Now that these areas are in effect, it is appropriate to add them to the Wind Bylaw in the appropriate sections. The recommendation is to treat 4 of the areas in West Dennis similar to Dennisport Village Center. The 5th area, which comprises protected open space, is recommended to be precluded from wind energy development. In Section 11.6.3.1, this is a change. It actually was numbered 11.6.3.2, and there was no 11.6.3.1, so we're making a correction in the numbering system here. Section 11.6.4 first is, again, incorporating the wording to make our zoning bylaw consistent with the Green Communities Act to provide those by right areas in town. Section 11.6.4 we also make changes in subsection C by adding a new little number 3. These changes address setbacks for large wind facilities from residential structures. The changes intended to address increasing certain setbacks and is brought to town meeting as a means of mitigating the potential impacts of allowing larger facilities north of Route 6. The proposal calls for development of a setback requirement of 2 times the hub height of a tower from the nearest residential structure located outside the Dennis Industrial Zoning District. This will provide some additional protection to the residential homes along Airline Road and Old Chatham Road. For clarity, it should be understood that the recreational vehicle park along Old Chatham Road is not considered to be occupied by residential structures. The site is neither permitted as a residential use and under state law are clearly determined to be motor vehicles. Because we add the new Section 3 in 11.6.4c, we need to renumber the existing 3 to 4, and we have to add a reference to the large-scale wind facilities. We also make changes in 11.6.4 to subsections D and E. We are proposing to increase the height of large-scale wind facilities by 60 feet for the hub height and 50 feet for the blade tip height. These changes are based upon studies that have been conducted to date for locating wind turbines on the Water District and town lands. In order for the Water District and town to pursue economically viable turbines for these 2 locations, the rezoned Water District land and the landfill area, the larger heights are required. These larger heights entail larger setbacks from property lines, and with other changes above, even greater setbacks from residential uses located outside the industrial district. Why this increase in height? The greater the height, the greater energy potential, because the winds are stronger the higher off the ground you go, but you also can provide a larger span for the rotor. The larger the rotor, the greater the energy benefit. Studies have shown that doubling the diameter of a rotor increases the energy production 4 times. This is a tremendous increase of energy potential we can get from this 50 to 60 foot height increase. The changes proposed